What's the pecking order?
I think you're gonna sit right next to me.
Thank you.
Yes, Tim Brown, pleasure.
Oh,
Yeah, we go shop it. How you been?
2 days of conference. As always, we are Cannabis Lab, Cannabis Law, Accounting, and Business, based down here in South Florida, folks. We have an amazing panel for you tonight. It is our corporate and legacy, a seat at the table together. We have incredible panelists here. Give it up for our panel right now. Thank you. Folks, if you enjoyed tonight's panel, we have more programming coming up for you. Check it out at jointclab.com next month on the 26th. We have our annual pitch slam, and then also just launched, we have a dispensary discount program. So if you join and become a member of C-Lab and you want discounted weed, we've got that for you. So go see Rob if you guys want to join. Leading tonight's panel, all the way in from LA, to grace us with his presence, I'm going to turn this over to Hayes, the editor-in-chief of Black Cannabis Magazine. Take it away, Hayes.
How y'all doing, everybody? You good. I'm Hayes from Black Cannabis Magazine. I started Black Cannabis Magazine because I wanted to highlight people of color in the cannabis industry in a positive light. I seen that too many stories about people of color were all negative. Us getting arrested, pulled over, us locked up, 40,000 prisoners in jail. So I wanted to highlight some of the people in the cannabis industry to educate, to inspire, and to But yeah, so today's topic is sitting at the table, corporate versus legacy. And we have a wonderful bunch of speakers here, and I'm gonna let them all introduce themselves one by one.
I'm Jesse. I'm the CEO of the Peaks Company out of Oakland, California. I was one of the first social equity applicants out of Oakland. And yeah, we've been in business since 2018. I'm going into my almost fifth year of business. So yeah.
Hi, I'm Kristal Royal. Oh, this is a little louder. I'm this loud. Probably a little bit of both. I am head of retail for Jungle Boy's Florida operations. So it's a pleasure to sit at this table with like-minded people who are passionate about the plant and really look for the plant for purpose. So we're excited to come in, bring Jungle Boys to Florida. And we're really just focused on creating a positive patient and employee experience focused on good products.
Hard one to follow. I'm Tim Brown, owner and founder of Baron Braxton Holdings. We own two brands, one of them LitStick, one of them Treehouse blends. Both have a THC and CBD version, and one of the minority owners in Florida that had to tackle 17 licenses averaging 65 million. So I learned a lot. It's a hard place to play, but if you can survive anywhere out here. So it's a pleasure to be here. And Overtown is like my backyard. This is where we built this brand. So it's really good to bring this crowd here and this group of people here. So I'm excited.
Brady Cobb, Florida native, been in the cannabis industry, you could say since I was born. My father was one of the biggest smugglers in Florida history between 1977 and 1983. He went away. So for me, it was my moment to kind of jump into the field. I went to law school so I could learn how to lobby, learn how to work Congress, learn how to get up into Tallahassee as well as Washington. Proud to work alongside guys like Cory Booker and Dave Joyce on advancing reform legislation. It's been a long road, but we're getting closer. More recently in the industry, launched a company called One Plant here in Florida. We built that out to 8 stores. Kind of only focused on the top end of the market. I couldn't be happier that Jungle Boys, as we were talking, is coming to Florida to elevate the quality level, because that's kind of missing here. We focused on it, only solventless concentrates and only the top end flower. We sold to Cresco last April. My team and I all exited. It was just a little bit too corporate for us. So all 9 of us kind of stepped aside, took a little bit of time off, and we just recently announced that we're diving all the way back in with MedMen. We're buying MedMen's assets in Florida. We're going to turn those around and turn them into a premium operation for concentrates and premium flower, and get to work with the Jungle Boys crew to try to elevate the game here in Florida a little bit. So really happy to be here. Thanks to everyone for having me here, and excited to be a part of this panel.
Graham.
Sure. Does that work? Can everybody hear me? I don't know what I look like over there.
What's up, Graham?
What's happening? How are you guys doing? Thanks a lot for having me. My name is Graham. I'm president and founder of Glass House. We're a California only operation. I've been growing for 20 something years. I started Glass House in the background and then started Glass House about 7 years ago. We started with one farm, bought another, and a handful of dispensaries. Now we have Glass House Farms, our kind of premier brand here in California. We also have Forbidden Flowers, Field Extracts, Mama Sue Wellness, and we're one of the larger flower brands and cultivators vertically integrated here in California. So happy to be on the panel and stoked to talk with you guys about this.
That's Chris.
I think you're muted, Chris.
Unmute. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? That's what's that. Hi, everybody. My name is Chris Ball. I am the CEO and founder of Ball Family Farms here in Los Angeles, California. We are the first vertically integrated social equity brand here in Los Angeles, having some success. I am the typical, trap boy turned CEO. So I'm here to just kind of give my insight on, what it means to be a legacy operator, coming from that culture, and then trying to transition into corporate America, trying to, take my brand nationwide. So happy to be here. Love Florida. Wish I could have been there with all of you guys, but I had a few 420 events to do yesterday, so I couldn't make the flight. But extremely excited to talk to you guys about this, and then just pass along some energy and synergy as far as social equity is concerned in Florida.
Awesome. Yeah, John never made it.
He's on there.
Oh, he's on there? You got him?
I don't see him from where I can sit, and it looks like.
Yeah, I don't see him either.
Yeah, so
778.
let's keep it pushing.
He's in the room.
All right, we're gonna keep it going. Does he have the link? I reset the link.
Is he in?
I sent it too. It's not there.
If he pops in while we going, we
Yeah,
can get
okay.
it going. So
Well,
we'll do it.
I'm gonna address the first question to Chris and Jesse. Many people say that social equity is a scam or set up to fail people of color. Can you speak to why some say this? And can you elaborate on the struggles you faced or does and how does corporate cannabis harm or help your situation?
I believe social equity, it depends. Every program is different. So I come from Oakland, which I think is probably the best model for social equity. So being in Oakland, I'm allowed to apply for grants. I'm allowed to apply for loans. And since I've been one of the first ones, I have a really strong relationship with the city. So I'm kind of like the poster boy for Oakland. So I kind of get some little extra. So I don't have anything bad to say about Oakland social equity, because I believe that if you have the tools and we get the funding, I feel like, yes, it's tough, but I feel like the cannabis market is tough itself. It doesn't matter if it doesn't help or if you don't. So I would really say that I would believe Oakland is a model that I will hope that other people replicate. I think it can be better by not like just being strictly for certain different things. But I think it's definitely, it helped a lot for me, for sure. I don't think I could have got a license without social equity, just to be honest.
I wish I could say the same. I am very, I am very excited for Jesse. I'm very familiar with Peaks, but here in Los Angeles, it was actually the complete opposite. For one, I will tell you that social equity is not a scam, but it is set up for failure in Los Angeles. Me being, a vertically integrated social equity applicant, it took a lot for me to get in the position that I am today. One of those things, one of the particular things that it took was that I had to have, thank God I had an education from the University of California, Berkeley, because when I went down to the DCR to try to apply for certain things, I understood what they were telling me. I understood when they told me you need to apply for an electrical permit for your building. I understood that I needed to hire a contractor or get somebody in that space to help me apply for an electrical permit. I also was fortunate enough to know that I needed to hire someone on my team that was really good with city, right? So one of my partners by the name of Ebony Anderson was an urban planner by trade. So I was able to corner her and offer her some equity in my company in order for her to help me navigate some of the verbiage that was in the social equity application that I didn't understand, and that's with a college degree. Fortunately, I was a legacy operator, so I had money, stacked away in shoeboxes under my beds for, I've been doing this since I was 16 years old. So I didn't have to go out and raise any money from a predatory investor that was only going to give me a certain percentage of my business in exchange for the funds. So for those reasons, I was able to, I'm kind of like the unicorn, just as Jesse said, he's the poster boy for Oakland, which is a good thing. I'm the poster boy for LA, but I had to do a lot of things myself, so I can't give LA that credit. I tell people all the time that the social equity program is broken because if you can imagine a college athlete getting a scholarship to go to school and the university admits him to the university, but doesn't give him priority registration, doesn't pay for his books, doesn't pay for his housing, doesn't give him a tutor to help him get through his classes, well, that collegiate athlete will typically fail out of school. So that's what's wrong with the social equity program in Los Angeles. Yes, you granted me the license, but you didn't give me the tools like Oakland gave Jesse to be successful.
Yeah. I love listening to Chris talk. I mean, that's awesome. I would say I agree. I think two points to point out. One is just because something doesn't work all the time doesn't mean we should quit doing it, right? I think the way that we're going to get social equity right is by keeping on, pushing on it, figuring out where it doesn't work and fixing those things and keeping going. So the fact that the first tries weren't always universally successful doesn't mean you stop. The other is, I think a big key is the education. It's really what Chris is saying is, you use other analogies. If you put me in a Formula One race car, but don't give me driving lessons, I'm going to crash too, right? Like you need those tools. We have the tools. I don't know how we hire governmental relations people. That it needs to come in a package, right? You can't just hand someone the keys and not tell them how to bake the bread, right? You need, here's the lobbyists, here's the people that can help with the forms, because 50% of businesses fail in the first few years. Cannabis is 10 times harder than that. It's hard no matter if you have all the resources. We can look and see the many companies with millions and millions of dollars who don't have those millions anymore, right? So you give somebody who might be new to something, half the tools is a waste of time. So you got to make sure it's a complete package.
Is he there? Oh, there he goes. Yeah, that's it.
So now we have John from Burb who joined.
Yeah,
John,
sorry I'm late.
Could you introduce yourself?
And I'm on the road back from Las Vegas, so computer wasn't working there, but I'm finally in. I was able to kind of listen along, but trying to catch my bearings here. How is everyone doing?
Great,
Doing
sir.
great.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Well, can you please introduce yourself, John? And then I will go into your question.
Yeah, for sure. My name is John Kay. I'm the CEO, one of the co-founders and creative director here at Burb. We are a cannabis brand. We have stores, BC, and then we have products for sale in various different places, Ontario, and then launching right now into California, and in the fall into Florida. So, legacy brand. I was driving back from with my friend here, Kevin Leong from 300 Entertainment, and he was, his company just went through a merger with Warner, and we're chatting about this whole corporate to legacy thing, and just saying, what is legacy, what is corporate, sort of, and talking about how the whole thing just exists in an ecosystem. The consumers are kind of telling us, they need mids are moving, in every market, right? So definitely there's, the legacy mindset that I think, some companies bring to it, but at a certain point, everyone's kind of going corporate just in terms of systems and processes and things like that. So it's definitely an interesting path.
Okay, John, my question for you is, what steps have you taken to keep the bridge between cannabis and arts alive? And do you plan on helping those who've been most harmed by criminalization to help them enter and succeed in the industry?
Yeah, for sure. So we work closely with artists. I myself am a musician, done a bunch of things, and cannabis has always been a constant. Growing up in BC has been kind of a, it is a legacy and a heritage. Basically, a lot of people are in this industry in BC, and the law enforcement has always been lax. So, a real cannabis culture kind of emerged where I'm from. But as a function of that, we just organically work with a lot of, creatives and artists, and we have a podcast. We meet a lot of, people through that channel, but supporting people, getting in the industry a lot of times, they do come from troubled pasts, we're in Canada, so the system is a little bit different. We're just entering California. So the social equity program doesn't exist in Vancouver, but in LA, we are working with social equity partners. I'm not sure if that answers your question or not.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Okay. Graham, what do you say to companies who are lobbying against home grow? And what do you say to the small farmers who feel like they are being pushed out of the industry, specifically by corporate cannabis?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, so the first one's easy, which is any company that feels like they need to try and make it hard for people to grow their own cannabis. That's their problem, not the person. Said if you can't provide a product that is better, more convenient, less expensive than what people can grow themselves, you shouldn't be here. So I've got basically zero tolerance for anybody who tries to prevent or any company that tries to prevent home grow. That's fear and protectionism. And I think cannabis makes the world a better place, and the more cannabis out there, the better. And anybody who works against that is not on my team. So that's an easy answer for me. The second one about the smaller farmers and corporate cannabis, I think the first place, and one of the things I've been kind of struggling with is what is the definition of legacy, right? And what is the definition of small? Certainly you can, somebody who's got 6 plants is small, and someone who's got a bunch, 100,000 square feet like we do is big, but where is that line, right? And I use myself, my first grow was probably when I was 17 years old in a little closet, and then I did a room, and then I did a garage, and then I did a house, and then I did my first greenhouse at 50,000 square feet and 150, and then 500,000 square feet. At what point was I legacy? Am I not anymore? And so, the way I like to look at it, and one of the things about this panel I know that we talked about is I really wish the word versus wasn't in there. It shouldn't be legacy versus corporate. It should be people who think cannabis makes the world better, working together against things that hold that back, right? So, certainly we have, if you want to call us the corporate cannabis, right? We're a company. We're not trying to push anybody out. That's not the goal. And, I'll use beer as an analogy, right? Like I love Pliny the Elder, Russian River Brewing Company. You can only get it there. That's about as craft, as a beer I know. But I don't actually, I love drinking it with my steak, right? But I don't want a 6-pack of Pliny on the beach. I want Corona for that. One of those is very craft. One of those is very corporate. They both have a great place. Neither one's wrong, right? And so I think finding ways to work together is the key on that. I think also working together with the regulators, right? And at least here in, maybe Florida, which I don't know that much about, is a very different model, right? It's you got to have X tens of millions of dollars to get in the game. California is kind of the opposite. It's as close to a free market as we have. And so then the challenge is more resource companies make progress where others don't. You have regulations that are out of sync, make it harder for smaller farms. So leveling that playing field and letting the customer decide, I think is a great tool. The other is remembering, Chris made a couple of comments that resonated with me, which is he's vertically integrated like we are. And he said he was a legacy guy who wants to go national, right? So now's a guy who is legacy, whose goal is to go corporate. That doesn't make him bad. That doesn't break it. That's the transition that we actually want to help people do. So, that I think that's an interesting thing to keep in mind. The other is places that we can work together. Like I happen to be walking, I don't know if you guys can see my screen, but I happen to be walking through, I can't share, through one of our stores, and on the shelf is Chris's products, right? So if we're corporate, we're helping sell his products in our stores. That's a great partnership that we should be focusing on. How do we work together to move cannabis forward and have high tides float all boats, not be fighting against each other?
Well said, Graham.
Thank you.
I agree.
Mr. Brown, Tim Brown.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You just recently signed a deal in California with a Black-owned, female-led operator. What are some challenges you face coming from legacy to the legal market?
Thank you.
Thank you. What are some challenges that you face coming from legacy to legal market? And what are some of the pros and cons of partnering with a corporate cannabis or MSOs?
Excellent question. First question is, geesh, I mean, every struggle you could come across, from handcuffs being smacked on you, catching bullets, people getting tied up. A lot of things come with not just including that community in the industry. There's a lot of things that don't get talked about that actually affect families. Like my mother's here, my son is here. They went through the process of fighting a federal case for marijuana. You know, she had to move out the house. He had to transfer schools. These are real residual effects. So I think when you talk about legacy, I think that's what defines legacy, is those type of struggles. I think people are very upset when there's no recognition for that. It's like, I'm not mad that you went from corporate America to cannabis, but recognize people died, people bled, people are doing time to do the same thing you're doing, and taking that risk was an absolute necessity. So now it's a very privileged choice to say, you know, we're not included in this, or the Chad versus the legacy guys. Legacy, and to the other point, you could say, you know, you sold some weed in college and your 2 little pounds a month was legacy. I can't argue with you at all if you want to come into the business, but all I'm saying is there's a community of people that, you know, they paid a dear price for this. So I think that should be recognized. I don't think we want handouts. I think like a Chris understands the ebb and flow of the business on a level that maybe a Graham cannot. But a Graham has the structure and the people around him to raise significant capital. So we have to be able to leverage the experience we have. We have to educate to become sophisticated to raise capital on that level. But we also need those people in the room. I mean, let's just be honest, like all of these capital funds, you know, you got a lot of names out here. You do not have one minority or Black-owned business in your portfolio if it ain't Viola. So that needs to change, man. You know, there's a lot of people out here that can play this game at a high level. And let's be honest, when you talk corporate, this is a regional business. Like, calm down. Like, you're not Pepsi. You're in one state, you cannot skip lines. You are local just like us, so we can compete too. So I have to say, that's the struggle. The biggest thing, though, I would say about the struggle is it made us really lead with the business, right? If you don't really know me, you don't know my story from, you know, what we went through. You know about the business, you know the products sell, you know the products are delicious, you know we're never out of inventory, you know you can get it online, you can get it in retail, you know that the business is real. You know I have an army of guys like John Robbins, Brett Finkelstein. I got people around me that's smarter. So we're presenting a case for the guy coming from legacy with the resources can absolutely put together a machine like Brady. You know what I'm saying? Like Brady's one of the guys we study, like we watch these guys, like we watch what you did, and it's a testament to what could be done when you give a guy who understands the business a chance and the capital to do that. Oh, and let me speak on Marlo and the social. So Marlo Richardson, everyone clap for Marlo Richardson. He's not here. She took a chance on us and she gave us a vertical license deal. And what that means is instead of us having to go through the process of attaining licenses, we use our trademarks, we use our formulations. Thank you, Ackerman, for getting me a great IP contract. And now we can skip state lines and play on the field with everybody else. And that's a Black woman that did that for us. But I have to say, we made the name in Florida. So we did it with CBD. I don't got 65 million. So just imagine what we do when we on the field with the THC. So I hope that answers it.
Well said.
Brady, so I was reading an article about you. And in the article, you said that discounting cannabis is considered a race to the bottom. And you were talking about how they have sales, 25% off the flower, 20% off the concentrates. So my question is, how can corporate cannabis compete with a legacy market that has better quality product for less money? What is the solution?
I'll start off by saying I don't think they can in the long run. I think the black market in a lot of places is stronger than the legal market. I think that's true here in Florida right now. Yeah. I can buy better quality product on the black market than I can buy buy in most dispensaries. When we built one plant, my entire goal with my team and how I was able to get guys to pick their families up and move from California, move from Humboldt, move from Denver and come east, and how we were able to convince guys like P-Bud and ChemDog Greg and those guys to come on the team and go get me genetics was, we're only going to go after the top of the market. I didn't compare about competing with True Leaf, Cetera, Curaleaf, any of them. I compared about competing with the street, because the street was where the best quality was. And I needed to be able to grow a good enough quality product that someone would want to go get their medical card. That's our entire goal. I didn't care about $15 ace or $20 ace. Let them have that business. For me, I wanted to be able to keep it authentic. And I think Graham said it pretty well, how I would describe corporate versus legacy. It's less about how big you are. To me, it's about how authentic you are and what you do and everything that you do. Do you honor the plant? Do you honor the people that came before you that sacrificed everything in some cases to try to keep this plant going? Do you honor the culture? That's my biggest problem with most MSOs. They all think we have to create a new branding category or branding campaign and become a pharmaceutical company just to educate people on cannabis. They don't realize it's been making concerts better and your in-laws tolerable for the last 70 fucking years. You know? So at the end of the day, and it has its own culture, it has its own verbiage, it has its own holidays, which we just settled yesterday.
Right.
For me, it's about not running away from that as if it's bad. It's about embracing it. And it's about making it so that people want to be a part of it and it's approachable. And the only way you can do that, in my mind, you say lead with the business. What I always said is lead with the flower.
That's right.
If your flower is good, I don't care if you are black market or legal market. If you have the best flower in town, it's not hard to move. You guys know that just as well as anybody.
Good dope sells.
Okay.
If
it's good, it's good. If it's bad, you are discounting it.
Yeah.
So that's me.
Yes, sir.
Can I chime in on that, please? Because, you know, what Brady is saying, you know, and what Tim said, I really wish I was sitting up there, you know, on that panel with you guys, because I'm jumping out of my seat right now because, you know, when I came into this space, you know, as a social equity applicant in Los Angeles, which is considered one of the most difficult, you know, markets in the world to compete in, you know, everyone told me what I could not do. You know, Chris, you can't come into the space with just one strain. You know what, Chris, you can't come into the space and name your strain Daniel LaRusso, because you're going to get sued for trademarking and yada, yada, yada. You need to have an indica, sativa, and a hybrid. You need to do this. You need to do that. And based off of selling probably 1 million grams of weed over the course of 25 years, I knew that was true. You know, I grew up in an era where there was only one strain of weed sought after in Los Angeles called OG. That was
Trippy here.
Gas always wins.
That's it, right? So, you know, people ask me all the time, Chris, as a social equity applicant, man, I just hear the social equity so bad. How'd you do it? How'd you do it? How'd you do it? It's a loaded question. Well, for one, I picked one strain. I led with the product because I knew from being a legacy guy or being a trap guy, there were many deals that I lost because I wasn't holding the best bag during that process, right? So to take my bag and go, I had to take my ball, go back on my side of the gate and figure out why did I lose that sale, right? So that's number one. Just what Brady said, you lead with the product. I led with one strain. I built my brand off of one strain, Daniel LaRusso. I was a social equity applicant. I was not supposed to be here. Your program sucks. It doesn't work. You're coming, you're black. You don't have, you know, millions and millions of dollars. But I focused because I knew from 20 years of experience, all I need is the strain. If I could call the strain whatever I want, I could call it dog shit, excuse my French. And if it hits, and if it's that, then everyone's going to come back to the dispensary and go, hey man, where's that dog shit? I want that. Right. So I just had to chime in and say something because I believe, you know, I truly believe as a legacy guy and as a social equity applicant guy that Brady and what Brady and Tim are saying, it's so much the truth that I wish I could just be there to give them a hug. Right. So everybody please listen to that.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you.
All right, Chris, one more question though. What about safe banking and how has your legacy market experience helped you with cannabis being all cash?
Safe banking, boy, oh boy.
There we go.
this is a whole problem, you know, in itself, right? So from coming from the legacy market, right, one of the things that we always had to worry about was getting robbed, right? You go do a deal, you know you're gonna go sell 100 pack, you know you're gonna have, you know, $200,000 on you. You don't know what's gonna happen once you leave that deal. You don't know if somebody's waiting for you around the corner. So, you know, with the banking, what's going on with banking, in my opinion, is we thank God Ball Family Farms was able to acquire our first bank, right? But we're getting killed with the rates, right? The rates are destroying us, right? So, I mean, in my opinion, something definitely needs to happen. And this is where I believe corporate America could come in and try to help us, right? Instead of coming in and trying to lobby and do all these things that are going to help your cause, right? And just your cause. Why don't you come in and take that education, take those resources, take that mastermind and help us figure out banking of some sort, so that, you know, us legacy guys or us operators are not carrying around cash and are sitting ducks for someone to come in and rob us, right? Me and my brother, you know, my brother's the CFO of our company. And, you know, for years we were told, you know, the FDIC, you know, there needs to be a blockchain. We're waiting for all this federal legalization for you to bank your money with banks, right? Because we can't track where the money's coming from. But then when we go to take 200 grand down to DCR to pay our taxes, they're putting our money in Wells Fargo bags.
Exactly.
So I'm like, well, wait a minute. How come you can bank the money, but we can't?
Yeah.
You know, so that's something that's definitely wrong. Like I said, thank God we do have a bank now, but it's not fair. You know, the price, the percentages that I'm paying on my money is not what, you know, Anheuser-Busch is paying on theirs. You know, so where does that leave me?
Yeah, I think that's a great point too, that having a bank account is not the same as being banked, right? Being banked means credit lines and working capital lines and loans and all the other stuff out there that allows business to run normally. I mean, I saw when you stood up, Chris, what's behind you there? Got that cash counter, right? Wouldn't it be nice to be able to get rid of that and not have that be a part of your life? I mean, when we started Glass House, probably the first 4 years, cash only business, man, it was so much work. Right? Like we're getting cash, we're counting cash. We did everything by the book. So W-2s, but no check in there. It was $590 and 3/4 and a nickel, right? And that meant we took 2 people to take it. And I got worried about the ladies in HR, because every 2 weeks, they're walking in, everybody's walking out with a pocket full of money until we could get a bank account. And we were one of the lucky ones. It's made our life tremendously easier. Right? The fact that safe banking doesn't exist, so that we're an exception and Chris is an exception and not the norm, is not a favor to anybody, but it is the biggest disservice to the smallest, the new social equity operators out there, because they're the ones that get it last. So I personally think safe banking is social equity. The big guys already have the bank accounts. The smaller guys need access to bank accounts, of course, but also cheaper capital, more efficient capital. Make it so that people can't gouge Chris on his rates, because there's not only 2 people serving them, but 20 people serving them. That's how the markets bring down prices, is by having selection. And right now, without safe banking, if you're lucky to have it, you're paying a lot for it. And that's not good for business. It's not good for cannabis. It's not good for the smaller operators the most.
And let me add something else to that, right? Let me add one more thing. My bad, Brady, I see you. Let me add one more thing, right? Not only is this a business thing, right? Not only is this good for business, but it's good for quality of life. And I'll tell you guys a quick little example, right? The other day, somebody called me, because I'm here in Los Angeles and there's a lot of robberies taking place all over Los Angeles, right? One of my friends called me and said he was talking to his buddy who's a detective, and the detective told him he was wearing a Ball Family Farm sweater. And the detective asked him, hey, do you know the owner of that company? And he said, yeah, he's a good friend of mine. Why? He said, well, I just want to give you a heads up. Our confidential informants, our CIs, have told us that he's on a list to be targeted to rob his home, because they know that he's the owner of the company, and they know that cannabis owners don't have banking, don't have safe banking. So they're assuming he's got all this cash in his house. My fiance was listening to this phone call. I had it on speakerphone. So as you can imagine, my fiance jumped up, and now I'm having to put extra cameras. I'm having to put all these different things around my home just so my fiance and myself can feel safe. You know, so these are the things, not only do they affect us business-wise, but they affect our quality of life, because I do have a money counter in my home, right? Because I have no choice. So please give me a bank and stop killing me with the rates.
Will you come to DC with me, please?
Absolutely, I'm there.
Meet me in DC, because this is the same message that I've worked with Representative Perlmutter probably since around 2015 on safe banking. And his whole purpose is, he's from Oregon and Colorado. He had a bunch, there's a couple guys from Oregon and Colorado that got together because those were some of the frontline states as well as California, and realizing the threat to robberies to people that are operating businesses is the single biggest problem, especially because when they open, when they close, they are well lit, where everything is.
Correct.
So at the end of the day, we've been pushing that bill, and it got kind of marked by some groups as being kind of a Wall Street bailout. At the end of the day, if you are Curaleaf, Trulieve, any of those companies, your cost of capital 6.5%, 7%,
Right.
and you got bank accounts everywhere. Safe
Right.
banking's not fixing your problems.
Right.
We were a small startup in Florida. I got bounced from probably 4 payroll companies, 3 banks. I personally had 2 bank accounts closed. My wife, who's sitting here, is a yoga instructor. Her yoga account was closed because she was married to me. Sorry. Because we took a paycheck from a cannabis company.
Right.
And I can't imagine, because I'm not affected by it, but I can't imagine being a small startup operator like Chris or like yourself, who had to come out of the ground and face those same problems and do it. It's a tough fight just to get off the ground as a small business operator in this sector, much less when you're carrying cash around. So to me, it's got to be fixed.
Yeah.
I'm in DC. I'm arguing loud, and we have our best chance over the next 6 months. Please write your congressman. It actually works. I swear to God, call them. It works. Send emails. It works, because this is a problem that needs to be fixed, because I've talked to too many people and had too many people come to DC and talk about getting robbed,
Right.
or losing people they love. I mean, there's a lot of money involved in this, and it should not be in cash. And we should not be paying 15, 18% for services in banking. It's ridiculous.
And valid point, Brady, everything you said. And to add to that as well, when you tell a guy like Chris or Josephine and Billy's or any number of social equity license holders, oh yeah, and you need to put your establishment in one of the most dangerous neighborhoods in America. That's part of the social equity, process. Like, you need to go to these neighborhoods that have been adversely affected by the war on drugs. So now you're not in Burbank, you're not in Van Nuys, you're going to be somewhere where you need to know how to move correct. Actually, you have to be somebody in that community. You really just can't move loosely like this. And I would say this though, I'll just give you this for free. It cost me a lot of money to learn this. Business structure. When you talk about education and sophistication of business, the way that these companies go around this stuff is the way the companies are actually structured. And my dear counsel, John Robbins, gave me this early. The first thing he ever did, we never talk about weed. Like, it's not a weed conversation. First thing this man ever told me was, we need to get Rick Fucci on this, and you need to get your structure correct. And coming from Legacy, I'm like, what you talking about? What does this even matter? He's like, no, trust me. You need to get this correct. You're not even positioned to raise money. And this is how a Trulieve, they did a lot of Trulieves contracts, gets around these things. They're structured to where they're not really a weed company in a lot of ways. And this gave us the education to do licensing deals. So we have bank accounts. We were one of the first people to process online cannabis sales with Square. And this is all the way the business is structured. So again, it's just that education that a lot of our, from the legacy side of the community is just lacking, where Brady, sophisticated businessman, law degree, you know what I'm saying? Like we need guys like him to reach back and teach guys. I learned all this stuff at 40 years old. Imagine a kid, how can benefit a kid my son's age. He maybe doesn't make a lot of the mistakes that happens in our life. So again, I think the key with the banking is the business structure, and also the education on how to get around these things, and smart people around you.
I just wanted to add in that you don't have to put your dispensary in that location. You just have to be from that location. And which leads to my next question for Kristal.
Hey.
So Kristal, you manage 7 dispensaries in Nevada. What are some of the things you did to give back to the community, and how important is it that the corporations are active in the communities that they operate in?
I think for any business, not just in Nevada, and not just in cannabis, you open up your business to provide a product for the people who live around you. And we happen to be in the cannabis space. So it's a responsibility as a business to go to your community first. Be a student of your community and really figure out what they want so you can create something that they need and that there's a demand for. And that's business 101, right? Doesn't matter if you're from the streets or you're from a classroom. I'm from a classroom.
Right.
I'm not a legacy person, although I happen to sit at a table with people who went through legacy life. That's not me. I'm embraced by a community of leaders. And so regardless if you're in Nevada, you're in Florida, figure out what the people need first. And I think that's what we're really talking about here. You know, Graham said it earlier, it's not about corporate versus legacy. It's about how we all gonna break bread together and respect what we do. We talk a lot about social equity and we talk a lot about legalization. It's about regulation. There's no fight between each other. And so when we want, competition isn't something that we should be afraid of ever.
Right.
Competition allows us to grow. If you're from corporate, you work on efficiencies. You know, I've been lucky enough that I've sat at corporate tables with some phenomenal CEOs. Being in Nevada, I got to sit at that table. And they have their own experience with cannabis, and they are led by that goal. If you decide to sit at a seat, if you decide to purchase from a dispensary, if you decide to support legacy, know who you're supporting and make sure the people that you're supporting are transparent. I'm lucky enough to be a female of color, sitting at a table with a group of cultivators who believe that the plant shows purpose. We're coming out to Florida to elevate the patient and the employee experience because the game needs to be elevated.
That's right.
100%.
That's right.
And so it's really important that we get rid of this narrative of we got to fight against each other. We got to fight against True Leaf. We got to fight against Cure Leaf. There's goodness in every one of these companies. They may not have the best products, but I've been lucky enough over the last 4 weeks to interview some of the most talented leaders in the cannabis space, and they come from Florida. So I'm excited to just work in the communities and learn from the communities because that's how Jungle Boys started. And I'm excited to sit at a table where there's diversity, there's inclusion, and there really is a belonging that this is my table. So it's important to go to your roots and go to the communities first, no matter what state you're in, Nevada, Florida, California. Respect the game, respect the people who started it, and invite the people who want to be a part of it.
100%.
Because, you know, I think to piggyback on that a little bit, like there are plenty of things that we should collectively be pushing back on, right? I mean, we should be pushing back on together, legacy, corporate, whatever label you want to give it, over regulation, over taxation, the people standing up and telling, you know, that smart approaches to marijuana, bullshit clowns, guys telling people that, you know, cannabis is bad and it's a gateway drug. And the guy from the state that has more opiates than people in it, who's campaigning against the legalization of cannabis, because when the studies come out, like they did last week, every county over 9 years that legalized cannabis had less prescription drug use. Like, that's a good thing. I don't care if you're in the hills of Humboldt or the biggest, you know, Cure Leaf down in Florida, right? Like, that should be something that we should all be united against, making a future where cannabis makes the world a better place. And that's something we do a lot better together than against each other on.
I think that we instead of legacy versus corporate, it should be cannabis versus pharmaceuticals.
Yeah. Alcohol and tobacco too.
Right. Yeah.
But I wanted to ask this last question is how does each one of us see each other working together?
Okay, I'll go. I I think people have to honestly give a lot of people like me a chance, because I done did crazy amounts of things and I didn't get an investment until last year. I done did everything myself. I didn't even hire an employee until last year. So I was doing $1 million every year by myself, being my own driver, being my own packager, my labeler. All this is documented because, you know, I got to get my money off this one day. So I did everything by myself. I think last year I got invested in by the parent company that's backed by Jay-Z. They were my first investors, but I still believe where my brand is and how big it can grow. I done did so many collabs. I got one with Trina coming, Brent Fayez. Bored Apes. I got everybody, like, and I do it all by myself. So it's like, when do they see me? Because I know I'm in every California store. I'm with Chris. I'm up on the top shelf, but are they really searching for the culture? Because it's pretty much in their face. People like me, I got as much press as any person, corporate, legacy, whatever. I'm in Forbes 3 times. I did everything. So it's like, what do I got to do to get a person like you was talking about structure? How can I make peaks at? A lot of times people look at me and they're like, oh, he just a street nigga from Oakland.
Right.
I want to be real. I don't want to cut my words. That's what I am. I'm a street nigga from Oakland. I've been homeless. I graduated with under a 2.0. People don't look at me and just think of, they see me on the other side. They think of me as a problem for coming in here and thriving in it and not having to go to anybody and not having to, owning my own company all the way up till now by myself, doing it by myself. So I just think it needs to be a focus on finding these people in culture. Maybe you don't want to invest, but I can help you bring culture to your brand.
That's right.
Why I'm not at those tables. So I think that's the thing that we should be looking into, seeing these young operators, what they're doing, and add them to your big company, or just trying to partner up with them, or bringing some people into their team to establish a dope brand. So I think that's the number one thing I could really say.
And you know, it's really just about knowing who you're breaking bread with. And that's from purchasing to making decisions in a boardroom. Respect the game and be good to the people that you sit with. Everybody has a story, and you should respect that. It's different for everyone. But if your foundation to be in cannabis isn't about the respect of the journey, then you really don't have a right to be here, and you will eventually be out. Like, that's how it is. More and more people are coming into the space and realizing that the plant will provide. It gives us purpose, but you got to take care of that girl. Right. You got to take care of her in that garden, and you got to take care of your people that help that out. So align with people who have the same values of you, and have that value be founded on respecting the game.
Yeah, well said, Kristal.
Thank you.
I think for me, you know, I took an approach of, I copy what the big guys do. And what I noticed a lot of times, and to add Jesse, you know, I feel what you feel. You put in a lot of work. You know, we run circles with the amount of product that we sold. You know, the way we impact the community loves us. We wouldn't be here if the product doesn't sell, because nobody is paying for us to be here. So to your point, I think the most important thing would be for like guys like Brady, we were just talking about it, like an incubator type situation where we say, okay, these are the brands that's on the way up that the community touches. Let's polish them up. Let's get them the structure they need. Let's get them the legal advice they need. Let's get them the pro formas they need. Let's put a package together. Let's get it to the right people and put it in line with everybody else that's shopping. Because at the end of the day, we are all businessmen and we all respect the business. Cannabis is a tough business. You'd be better off going do real estate. So when you see a guy in this space and he's having success and nobody's giving him a dime, you gotta respect that. It's not a handout thing, but it's very frustrating when you sit in the office. You know, I'm like, bro, I know you never seen $250,000 of your own money, but you're telling me that I'm not gonna clear due diligence. you know, because I'm 6'3" and I look like this when I walk in the room. So I think it takes more people recognizing and seeing that it's not so much of we're that far off the business models. I think it just takes a little polishing and people in that position to say, yo, we're going to take those guys and put them on the field. You put them on the field, they don't score, then we can't complain. But we got to get on that field. So for me, I think it's aligning with guys like Brady, aligning with people like Kristal, aligning with like, I would love to see a Ball Family Farms collab with Jungle Boys in Florida. I would love to see a Brady Cobb do something with Peaks, you know? And there's a lot of guys in this room that support me and came here to see me, and they're up next too, and they're working hard too. So I think the guys like Brady who have done this, and I hate to keep, I mean, again, I just studied your blueprint, and I mean, you know, this guy sold a company for 200 million, disappeared, came back, bought another one for 83. I think he can help me and my brothers, and I think we can, and I think we can help him. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, Brady. Nice to meet you, Brady. Yeah, so that's how I see us working together in that.
I mean, how do I, you know, for me, it's, as everybody up here said, it's a hard business. It's, you know, I call it life on the frontier. I mean, I'm not complaining because we get to be a part of history. There's not many times you get to be a part of literal history while it's happening, no matter how hard it is to get to be on these front lines. Everyone has their own version of the front line, but if you're in this industry and you're making the sacrifice, you're in it. And when you're in it, you understand it. It looks great on paper. You see it on CNBC. Oh, cannabis is exploding. Okay, come run a business. Come deal with payroll. Come deal with a bad harvest. Come deal with getting your bank accounts canceled. It's hard. So I think for me, it's hard enough as it is. If there's one thing I'm trying to do within the industry, within the community, is, Kristal, I don't think you could have said it better about embracing the community. For me, it's about anywhere I've ever operated, whether it's Florida or otherwise, it's understanding that community, not trying to come in and be something different, becoming a part of it, and not overnight, not having a mayor ribbon cutting for your dispensary, but finding out what matters for that community and working your way into it with their respect, whether it takes 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, or 12 months. Doesn't matter. If you're in, you're in. In our business, we say some people play for a fast nickel, other people play for a slow dime. I always want to be that slow dime. So for me, it's about having that focus, and I think it's a hard enough business to the extent we can have some cooperation and all work together in this industry to pursue reform in DC, to pursue reform for some of these programs, for social equity programs, or as Graham said, state taxation. I mean, it's a hard enough business. All of a sudden, you're gonna start throwing California 25, 30% sales tax on it. When you add in the state and local taxes, how are you going to compete with the street? Now it is Legacy's got one up on the street because there is no tax on the street. So at the end of the day, it's about we can all compete. Flower's going to win, best flower is going to win, best brand, best authenticity is going to win. There's certain areas that we need to come together and work on DC policy reform and get not united behind 30 different potential items. We need to come up with a couple things that we say everybody's all in on, and we go get them done, because right now we are going up against alcohol, tobacco, and pharma, and 70 years of bad drug policy. And alcohol, tobacco, and pharma have a massive head start in political fundraising. I'm in those rooms. Then they have a massive political on just influence. We can't even get together as a group right now to figure out what reform measure we want to pursue, much less come together and go do it in a unified fashion. Our opponents are supremely unified. They all recognize the threat of the industry, but they said until they get their house in order on the other side, we don't really need to mess with them. So that's one thing that I hope that we can really come together as an industry and figure out. I look forward to partnering and being a person at a table amongst a big, long table of people to figure this out so that we can all come together. So thank you for having me here tonight. Only other thing I would say is our mentorship program. It's needed so badly, and count me in to do it. Count me in to do it. It is needed so badly.
I guess I'll go next. How I see all of us working together is simply, what we're doing right now, right? As I sat here and listened to everyone, Ball Family Farms is gearing up, for a national rollout. We definitely want to expand into the 6-7 major states. So now, that I've heard everything that I've heard, I'm definitely contacting Brady, Tim, and Kristal when it's time for me to go to Florida. Those will be my allies, right? I'm definitely contacting Graham regarding a partnership for outdoor greenhouse flowers so I can get my solventless extraction stuff going, right? I'm definitely gonna reach out to him. And if there's anybody in the room that needs an authentic legacy operator who was indicted, you know, for a voice, for policy reform, for tax reform, from any of those things legislation wise, I'm here, right? You can reach out to me. All these things, man, and just to echo, you know, what I think Brady said or what Tim said, right? There's enough room, you know, for everybody in the space. You know, when you compare our beloved cannabis industry to the alcohol industry, right? There are craft beer companies, you know, there are your Blue Moons and your Lagunitas, and then there are your Anheuser-Busch's and your Coors and all these different things, right? There's enough room for everybody. You don't need to compete. And if you're really from this culture and you've really been doing it, you know that, right? I've competed with legacy trap guys my entire life, and I still was able to get myself indicted because I'm making millions of dollars doing something that the government can't put a tax on, right? So there's enough room for everyone. You don't have to come in and try to gain all the market share. You know, what happens when there are more Chris Balls, there are more Ted from Alien Labs, there are more Jungle Boys, Roach, and all these guys, you know, and Pat and all these different guys, right? The only person that wins in that, because we're all competing, we're all cultivators and we're competing, but we compete with a smile on our face. I'm an ex-athlete. I'm an ex-professional athlete and collegiate athlete. I have no problem with competing with you. And then at the end, may the best men win. And then we strap up again and do it a week later, right? But at the end of it, just like in a game, the fans, they get a show, they win. In the cannabis space, the better your products are that we compete, the better the flower is, the consumer is the only person that wins, because now they get to go out and purchase a product that actually works, that actually tastes good. And all these great cultivators and operators are competing with one another to give the consumer the best experience, right? The last thing I want to say is just about social equity, right? Guys like myself, guys like Jesse, our position is extremely important, right? Because we do represent, you know, and guys like Tim, right? We do represent a culture of people who have carried this industry on our backs, right? I was indicted back in 2010. I was looking at a 10-year mandatory minimum on my case for distributing marijuana, right? Fortunately for me, God was on my side. I paid my debt to society and I was able to come out and rehabilitate myself. And now I'm bubbling, right, in this burgeoning market, right? But the social equity applicant, and I'm not saying all social equity applicants, so I don't want you guys to think that I'm sitting here saying, if you're social equity, you need to be on the shelves. No, if you're social equity, you need to get an opportunity to participate, but you need to be able to compete. Okay, we're not going to just give you shelf space just because you're social equity. If you really want to do this, get your ass in your grow room or whatever it is that you, whatever sector you want to be in, and make sure you study. Make sure you put in your 10,000 hours. Make sure you bring something to the culture that you're representing. Make sure you're doing something healthy for the culture that you're representing. And if you are, then you deserve an opportunity, right? So for myself, like I said, I'm an ex-athlete and I'm a social equity applicant. I don't know how to raise $20-30 million. You know what I know how to do? I know how to grow weed. I know how to brand my weed, and I know how to tap in with the culture. So I'm going to need some help when it comes time to raise that type of money. I'm going to need some help with setting up my company in that type of structure. That's how we help one another. Hey, Chris, you're a social equity applicant. You're doing it right. You're competing. The consumer is choosing you. Hey, man, come on over here. Let us show you how to build this thing. Let us show you how to scale. Let us show you how to have a multi-state operation. Let us show you how to raise $20-30 million and budget it so that you can have some success, so that you can create some generational wealth for your family. That's how we work together, in my opinion.
Well said, bro.
That's a tough one to follow right there. I mean, everything that everybody says has been fantastic. And I think, you know, I come back to kind of the first principles, which is there is room for everybody. Cannabis makes the world a better place. And the more we work together, the better that world will be, right? And so, you know, I know that some of the things that we're looking at, right? Like we talked about safe banking. I think that helps everybody sitting around this table, right? Federal legalization, keeping pharma and the big alcohol and those guys who are holding things back helps everybody around the table. I know one of the things that we're doing is trying to build a platform that, you know, unlicensed, legacy, whatever you want to call it, folks can use, right? And one of the models that I think of is like Michael Jordan and Nike. right? Like Michael Jordan did the work, but he doesn't have to worry about how the shoes get made. Nike takes care of that, right? So are there ways that we can take people who aren't licensed yet, legacy folks, people who have great genetics, people who have great brands, and give them a pathway on the platform, right? Where we can take care of a lot of the bullshit structures and the structuring and the bank accounts and things like that, and just let them be who they are, be that artist, be the record label a little bit. I think there's great opportunities where those kind of collaborations can work. The other thing is recognizing, at least, you know, for those of us who are vertically integrated, there's places where we may compete and there's places where we can work together, right? So we have 4 retail stores, 3 more under construction, probably be 15 by the end of the year. We have an intentional program to make sure that there's space on our shelves for the legacy and smaller farmers, right? It's not something that we necessarily blast out there, but want to make sure they can't succeed if you don't have the opportunity, right? We don't pick for the customer, but we can make sure that there's an opportunity for those people, those farmers, to get on the shelf and have a chance to win. And I forget who said it, but nobody deserves to win. Everybody deserves a chance. And that's something that I think we collectively need to work together to make sure that everybody gets that chance to show who they are. Then the market, the customer, et cetera, sorts it out. We pick the winners from there. But if people don't have a chance, that's a loss. And that's something that we didn't make happen. So collectively, everybody gets that chance. Find the winners after that. So, I mean, I think this is great. And I think the conversation is where it all starts. So thank you, everybody, for having us and putting this together.
John?
Good, John.
Yeah, I mean, so many great things were said, and it's really awkward for me to driving, holding a phone, and feeling tapped into the conversation here. So apologies on that, but I think, I mean, look, I come from a different country, and I think this, you know, kind of thing, conversation, and just getting in the room and finding like-minded people, I think everyone's head is in the right place. Like, you know, you hear the community really impact your community, genuinely be in the community and working, you know, to you know, basically make it better, make better products for people. And I think that it's a big opportunity for storytelling, you know, brands coming together and, you know, making great products that benefit the consumer, you know, giving back to the communities and just, you know, pushing the industry forward. Obviously the customer is in the best seat in the house here because it's early innings, and I think the space for collaboration and the room for collaboration is massive. So, you know, not much else to add, but I hope to meet as many of you as possible over the next, you know, little while, and genuinely curious and interested, you know, to learn more about the youth industry.
Hey, Hazey, can I give a shout out real quick before we end?
Yes, sir.
I just want to shout out a guy sitting in that audience by the name of Mike Elkin, and he's the type of guy that, you know, a lot of us, you know, he's the type of guy that I appreciate, because Mike is a guy that's been kind of, you know, helping me to understand, you know, how to raise money, what that looks like at a very high level. And the man hasn't asked me for $1. I've asked the man to meet me in Marina Del Rey. I've asked him to meet me all over Los Angeles. And all he says is, Chris, whatever you need, brother, I got you. He hasn't asked me for a penny. He hasn't asked me for equity in my company. He's just pure hearted and just really trying to help a social equity applicant or somebody he believes in do it right. So along with just like Brady up there and some of the other guys sitting on that panel and probably some other people in that room, it's people like you that give guys like myself hope. So please share that energy with each other, inspire one another, and let's let the marijuana-thon continue, man.
Get into that.
We also like to shout out Mike Elkin for getting Kristal on the Zoom today.
Yeah.
Guys, ladies and gentlemen, give it up for our panel one more time, please. I don't know, do we have any virtual questions here? Anything good?
Yeah, there might be some. Let's make sure they're good.
That's a statement. I think. All right, we're gonna take physical questions because that's kind of blurry. Anybody have a question for the panel? Apparently you guys left them speechless, so give it up one more time.
Thank you.
Folks, like I said, if you enjoyed the program tonight, the next program is gonna be on the 26th. It was gonna be our annual pitch slam. Stay tuned.
You guys are so
live
sweet.
conference. Check out Elevated Grind every Tuesday at 2 p.m. YouTube.com/Elevated Grind and LinkedIn. Folks, thank you guys very much. It's been amazing.
Later, Chris.
Yeah, Chris, John, we gotta get you guys down here in person sometime. Thank you guys. Have a great night.
You guys, thanks for having us. Have a good rest of the night.